The first sound was the echo of a gavel slamming against the bench, sharp enough to rattle the wood beneath Raymond Hale's mop bucket. He froze mid-step, gripping the handle like it was the only thing keeping him upright. The courtroom had erupted into whispers. Reporters scrambled. Security shifted. And a billionaire sat alone at the defense table with no lawyer beside him. Raymond blinked hard. He had seen chaos in this courthouse for 20 years, but nothing like this. "Ladies and gentlemen," the judge barked, voice shaking with barely controlled anger, "I repeat, where is the defense counsel for Mr. Adrian Cross?" The billionaire, dressed in a graphite gray suit, looked like a man who just watched his entire empire get pulled out from under him. Adrian Cross swept the room desperately, but all he found were the cameras zooming in on his panic. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Raymond felt something twist inside him, a feeling he knew too well. That look, helpless, cornered, discarded, was the same look he wore the day they stripped him of his law license and laughed at him as he walked out of the courtroom with only a box of files and a shredded reputation. The judge spoke again. "If defense counsel does not appear in the next 60 seconds, this court will proceed with default judgment." Gasps tore through the room. Raymond's heart hammered. He wasn't supposed to intervene. He was supposed to finish mopping this aisle and move on to the south wing. He had promised himself years ago he wouldn't get involved again, not after what they did to him, not after they burned his career to ash. He'd buried that part of his life deep. Or so he thought. But as he looked at Adrian, alone, trembling, abandoned, something ancient inside him snapped awake. The whispering grew louder. They ditched him. His whole team just disappeared? This case is worth billions. What's going on? They say he stole the tech. Maybe his lawyers bailed before the ship sank. Raymond set his mop aside slowly, like a man disarming a bomb. His palms sweated. His breath quivered. He felt the eyes of the room sliding toward him, confused, irritated he wasn't moving out of the way like a janitor should. He swallowed hard. Then he stepped forward. "Your Honor," he said, his voice low at first, but strong enough to slice through the murmurs. "If I may." Every head turned. The billionaire's eyes widened. The bailiff instinctively reached for his belt. Reporters raised their cameras. The judge frowned. "Sir, this is not the time for—" "I will defend him." Gasps exploded. Even the stenographer looked up, forgetting to type. Raymond heard the words fall from his mouth like they came from someone else. But once spoken, they rooted themselves firmly in the air. The judge stared at him as if he'd grown two heads. "Excuse me," I said. Raymond stepped closer, refusing to shrink even as security inched forward. "I will defend Mr. Cross." The courtroom went into chaos. People stood. Journalists whispered frantically. Even Adrian's mouth fell open. "But you're the janitor," someone shouted from the gallery. Raymond clenched his jaw. "Yes, I am. And I'm also a licensed attorney in the state of Illinois." It was like dropping a grenade. Silence hit them for half a second, then everyone erupted louder than before. "You're kidding? No way. Is he crazy? Is he actually legit?" The judge slammed the gavel repeatedly. "Order. Order now." When the noise died enough, she turned a piercing stare on Raymond. "You claim to hold a valid license?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you have proof?" Raymond reached into the inside pocket of his uniform, an act that immediately made two guards step closer, but he slowly withdrew a folded plastic sleeve. Inside was a card nearly 2 decades old, but unmistakably official. The judge signaled for the bailiff to retrieve it. The entire court watched as she examined it with narrowed eyes. After a long moment, she looked up. "This license is active." Shock waves rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "But how? Why is a licensed lawyer mopping floors?" Raymond inhaled deeply, willing his hands not to shake. "That's a story for another day, Your Honor. Right now, this man has no counsel and he deserves representation." Adrian rose slowly. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Sir, you don't even know me." "No," Raymond said, turning to meet his eyes. "But I know what it feels like to be left to burn in a courtroom alone." The billionaire swallowed hard. emotion flickering across his face. "Will you really help me?" Raymond nodded once. "I'll defend you." The judge leaned back, studying him. "Mr. Hale, this is a federal fraud case involving stolen energy technology worth billions. The prosecution is led by the U.S. Attorney's Office. If you take this case, you take responsibility for every consequence that follows." Raymond steadied his breath. "I understand. And you're sure about this?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge tapped her pen against the bench, thinking. Then she finally said, "Your Honor, this is highly irregular," Assistant U.S. Attorney Melissa Rourke protested, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "The government cannot proceed with a janitor as opposing counsel in a multi-billion-dollar technology case. The stakes," the judge interrupted sharply, "are that the defendant has a constitutional right to counsel. And unless you have the authority to strip him of that right, we are moving forward." Melissa's jaw tightened. Her eyes slid toward Raymond with a look that wasn't just annoyance, it was fear. A quiet, unsettled fear. Raymond noticed. Adrian noticed. If you're still following this unbelievable courtroom shift, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps push this story to more people who love real tension, real emotion, and real justice. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. A few reporters noticed too, whispering as the courtroom slowly resumed its stiff, tense shape. The judge looked at Raymond. "Counsel, approach." Raymond walked toward the bench, every eye following him, every whisper slicing into him like a reminder of the life he thought he'd lost. The judge leaned down slightly. "I don't know what game you think you're walking into," she murmured, voice low enough that only he could hear, "but this case has already chewed up 2 major law firms. If you step into this ring, you need to be prepared for consequences that don't end when court adjourns." Raymond held her gaze. "I've lived through consequences, Your Honor. And I'm still here." A shadow crossed her eyes, something like respect or maybe concern, but she straightened and said aloud, "Return to counsel table. We will proceed." Raymond nodded. He walked back, feeling the weight of the entire courtroom pressing down on him. Adrian stepped closer as he sat. "You didn't have to do this," Adrian whispered. "Yes, I did," Raymond murmured back. "Someone has to." Before Adrian could respond, the judge announced, "Opening statements begin after lunch recess. Court is adjourned for 1 hour." As the gavel fell, chaos erupted again. Reporters surged toward Raymond. Security blocked them. People whispered his name as if trying to place where they had seen him. Raymond didn't stop for anyone. He grabbed his mop, pushed the bucket out of the courtroom, and headed straight for the janitor's break room. His heart was racing, hands trembling. He shut the door behind him and sank onto a chair. For a moment, the world felt too loud, too bright, too heavy. He pressed his fingers against the bridge of his nose. "Lord, what did I just walk into?" "Something only you could have," a voice said. Raymond snapped his head up to see his daughter, Lila, standing in the doorway. She wore a black backpack slung over one shoulder, her curly hair tied up in a loose bun, and her expression was somewhere between disbelief and fury. "Lila," he breathed. "What are you doing here?" She stepped inside and closed the door. "Dad, the whole courthouse is buzzing. You just volunteered to defend the most high-profile billionaire in Chicago. In a case involving stolen energy tech." She threw her hands up. "While wearing a janitor uniform." He sighed. "I didn't plan it." "Obviously," she said, pacing. "Are you out of your mind?" Raymond rubbed his face. The man had no one. They bailed on him. Every single lawyer. "So? That doesn't mean you had to drag yourself into the line of fire." She stopped, her voice softening. "Dad, after what they did to you, why go back?" Raymond's chest tightened. Memories he'd buried deep clawed their way up, the lies, the false misconduct charges, the way the board laughed at him as they destroyed his name. How he'd been escorted out like a criminal. "Because," he said quietly, "what happened to me shouldn't happen to anyone else. And today, I saw the same trap closing around another man." Lila stared at him, eyes glossy. "You're going to get hurt." "I'm already hurt," he said softly. "This might be how I fix it." Before she could argue, a soft knock sounded at the door. When it opened, Adrian Cross stepped in hesitantly, flanked by two security guards who clearly weren't sure whether Raymond was friend, foe, or miracle. Adrian looked nervous. "Mr. Hale, can we talk?" Raymond stood and nodded. Lila stepped back, crossing her arms protectively. Adrian approached slowly, like a man approaching a priest for confession. "I don't know how to thank you. I didn't expect anyone to help me today, much less someone who—" He stopped himself, but not before the word janitor nearly slipped out. Raymond smirked just a little. "Finish the sentence." Adrian swallowed. "Someone who didn't owe me anything." "That's better," Raymond said. "Now tell me why your lawyers ran." Adrian's face darkened. "They didn't run. They were threatened." Raymond's eyes narrowed. "By whom?" Adrian glanced toward the hallway, lowered his voice, and said, "By the people who want my invention buried. The Titan Energy Group. They're partners in government. They're lobbyists. They're donors. They're friends." Lila stepped forward. "You're saying they blackmailed 2 entire law firms?" "No," Adrian whispered. "They scared them. Badly enough they quit at 9 a.m. and vanished." Raymond felt the chill run from his spine to his fingertips. This was deeper than he thought. "And the tech you're accused of stealing?" Raymond asked. Adrian met his eyes. "I didn't steal it. I built it. A geothermal energy core that can power entire cities for free. No fuel. No emissions. No profit for energy giants." Raymond understood instantly. "Which means," he said slowly, "if your invention works, major corporations lose billions." "Trillions," Adrian corrected. "Annually." Raymond let out a long breath. "Oh, that explains the guns pointed at your back." "And now yours," Adrian said. Raymond didn't react outwardly, but inside he felt the weight shift, heavier, sharper. Lila instantly stepped closer to him. "Dad, don't do this. This is too big." He touched her shoulder gently. "Sweetheart, every injustice starts big because nobody wants to face it." She looked down, swallowing hard. Adrian leaned in. "Mr. Hale, I promise you if you stand with me, I won't let anything happen to you." Raymond gave a small, humorless laugh. "Son, you're the one on trial. I should be promising to protect you." Adrian looked away, ashamed. Lila sighed, defeated. "Lunch recess ends in 30 minutes. Raymond nodded. "Then let's prep." He turned toward Adrian. "Tell me everything. Start with who wants you destroyed." Adrian hesitated, then said a name that made Raymond's blood run cold. Because it was the same name connected to the conspiracy that ruined his own life decades ago. And suddenly Raymond realized, this wasn't just Adrian's fight. It was his fight too. The name hung in the air like poison. Raymond felt as if someone had cracked open the past and poured its venom back into his veins. "Say that again," Raymond said quietly. Adrian swallowed. "The man funding the smear campaign against me is Victor Langston." Lila froze. Raymond didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move. For a moment he wasn't in the janitor's room anymore. He was standing in his old law office, being told that his career was gone, that he'd violated ethical codes he'd never even touched, that powerful people wanted him out. And the man signing the papers? Victor Langston. The same billionaire philanthropist who had built a public reputation as a savior of the energy sector, while crushing anyone who threatened his profit streams. The same man who had ensured no law firm would take Raymond Hale's name again. The same man whose signature turned Raymond from a rising star attorney into a disgraced nobody mopping courthouse floors. Raymond's fists clenched. Adrian noticed. "You know him." Raymond slowly exhaled. "I know exactly who he is. And now I know why you're being hunted." Lila stepped between them, panic creeping into her voice. "You cannot drag yourself back into Langston's world. You survived it once. Barely." Raymond shook his head. "No, Lila. I didn't survive it. I drowned. I just learned how to breathe underwater." Adrian stepped closer. "If Langston is connected to your past, then maybe you can help me expose his motives." Raymond looked at Adrian with a sharp, calculating stare. Before we continue, I need the truth. Everything. What exactly is your invention capable of? Adrian hesitated, then unlocked his tablet and handed it to Raymond. On the screen was a blueprint. Circular, elegant, almost impossibly simple. What you're looking at, Adrian said, voice shaking with equal parts pride and fear, is the Helios core. A geothermal microreactor. Self-sustaining. Zero emissions. Zero fuel cost. It can power an entire city block for 50 years. Raymond stared at the diagram. If this thing works, he said slowly, you could end reliance on fossil fuels. Adrian nodded. I could free the world from oil, gas, coal, and every corporation whose wealth depends on them. Lila's jaw dropped. Dad, this isn't just big. This is world-changing. No, Raymond corrected softly. This is world-threatening, to all the wrong people. He handed the tablet back. But they're not accusing you of inventing it. They're accusing you of stealing it. Adrian nodded grimly. Langston claims I hacked his energy research division and stole the design. Raymond frowned. But did you? No, Adrian said firmly. Langston doesn't even have anything capable of this level of innovation. His companies haven't produced a new energy model in 20 years. They buy patents and bury them. Raymond's face tightened. That tracked perfectly with everything he knew about Langston. Lila spoke up worried. So he's framing you so he can claim the invention as his own? Adrian shook his head. Worse. He wants the tech destroyed. And he knows the easiest way to destroy it is to destroy me. Raymond closed his eyes for a moment, letting the gravity settle. This trial isn't about guilt or innocence, he said. It's about power. And the people targeting you, they don't lose. Adrian's voice cracked. Can I ask you something? Raymond looked at him. Why did you stand up for me? Really? Raymond thought of that morning. The fear in Adrian's eyes, the smug relief of the prosecutor, the judge about to make a decision that would ruin the man's future. He thought of the broom in his hand, the door he was told never to knock on again, the life he'd been forced to accept. And then of the moment he couldn't stay quiet anymore. Because someone should have stood up for me, Raymond said. No one did. Not one person. Silence filled the room. Adrian's expression softened in understanding. Lila's eyes glistened with a mix of grief and pride. A sudden knock ripped through the tension. Mr. Hale? A clerk called from the hallway. Court resumes in 15 minutes. Raymond straightened. His heartbeat slowed. His breathing steadied. He was stepping back into a courtroom not as a janitor, but as a man reclaiming what was stolen from him. He turned to Lila. Go sit with the spectators. I need you where I can see you. But Dad. No arguments. She reluctantly nodded. Raymond looked at Adrian. Stay close. Say nothing unless I tell you. Adrian swallowed. I trust you. They stepped out together. The walk back to the courtroom felt longer, heavier, like a man walking into a storm he knew had been waiting years just to swallow him whole. As Raymond entered the courtroom, every head snapped toward him. The judge, the prosecutor, the reporters, the gallery. Even the bailiffs seemed unsure whether they were looking at a fraud or a force they had underestimated. Raymond sat at the defense table. Adrian sat beside him. The judge rose. The court will now hear opening statements. Raymond stood. Across the aisle, Assistant U.S. Attorney Melissa Rourke stood at the same time. Their eyes locked, hers sharp and cold, his steady and storm-bound. Prosecution may begin, the judge said. Melissa stepped forward with a polished confidence that came from years of winning cases with precision. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, she began, this case is simple. Adrian Cross is a thief. A brilliant thief, perhaps, but a thief nonetheless. He stole sensitive, classified, and dangerously advanced energy technology from Titan Energy Group. Objection, Raymond said calmly. Melissa blinked. You're objecting to my opening sentence? Yes, Raymond said, on the grounds that the prosecutor is misleading the court. The judge raised an eyebrow. Counselor, this is an opening statement, not evidence. I understand, Your Honor, Raymond replied. But calling technology dangerously advanced is prejudicial language without factual basis. The entire courtroom stirred. Melissa glared at him. Your Honor, the defense counsel is reaching. I'm standing, Raymond corrected. Reaching implies I'm trying. I'm simply doing. The gallery laughed softly. The bailiff shot them a warning look. The judge tapped her pen. Mr. Hale, you will not turn this courtroom into a stage. Of course, Your Honor, he said. But accuracy matters. Even in an opening statement. Melissa exhaled sharply. Fine. Let me rephrase. She turned back to the court. As I was saying, Mr. Cross stole valuable proprietary designs from Titan Energy. Objection, Raymond said again. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Melissa slammed her folder shut. Your Honor. Raymond clasped his hands behind his back, composed. Your Honor, calling the designs proprietary assumes ownership that is still unproven. The judge let out a breath. Mr. Hale, I will allow the prosecution to speak. Raymond nodded. As long as the language reflects facts and not assumptions. Melissa smirked. Well played. I see we have a philosophy professor at the defense table. Raymond returned the smirk with one colder. No. Just a man who believes truth shouldn't be bent before the jury even hears it. The tension crystallized. The judge looked between them, seeing a battle forming she wasn't sure she could contain. At last, she said tightly, Objection overruled. Proceed, Ms. Rourke. Melissa continued, but her confidence had cracked. Raymond had cut her rhythm before it could even form. When she finished her opening, the judge looked at him. Defense, your opening statement. Raymond stepped forward. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence. He looked around. At the jury. At the spectators. At the judge. At Langston's empty seat in the gallery, reserved, but not occupied. Then he began. I'm not here because I'm the best lawyer in the city. Those men ran this morning. I'm here because when a system is broken, the only people who fix it are the ones it tried to bury. A ripple swept through the courtroom. And Raymond continued, voice steady, powerful, and rising. I want to tell you a story, Raymond said, his voice strong but measured. Not the one the prosecution rehearsed. Not the one typed into neat bullet points on their slides. I want to tell you a story about a system that punishes brilliance when it threatens power. The room stilled. You will hear that Adrian Cross stole something, he continued, pacing slowly before the jury, but what no one will tell you is why a billionaire energy mogul suddenly wants a small inventor destroyed. Why Adrian's research lab was raided only hours after he refused to sell a prototype. Or why every major law firm in the city got a phone call instructing them to drop this case immediately. Melissa shot up. Objection. Speculation. Raymond didn't even look at her. Truth, he said. The word you're reaching for is truth. The gallery gasped. The judge smacked her gavel. Mr. Hale. Control your tone. Raymond bowed his head slightly. Apologies, Your Honor. His gaze swept the jury again. But you'll learn, ladies and gentlemen, that sometimes the truth does not enter a courtroom through polite doors. Melissa rolled her eyes. The judge sighed. The jury leaned forward. Retention achieved. Raymond stepped closer to the jury box, hands clasped behind his back. You will see evidence that Adrian Cross invented something that threatens the very foundation of Titan Energy. Something that could free the world from dependence on fossil fuels. Something that would make global empires, billions of dollars, collapse overnight. He paused for effect. And that is why he is sitting here. Not because he stole anything, but because he refused to bow. Adrian swallowed hard. Even he didn't breathe until Raymond finished. Thank you, Raymond said, returning to his seat, slow, deliberate, unshaken. The moment he sat, the judge exhaled. We will now proceed with witness testimony. Prosecution, call your first witness. Melissa smirked. The government calls Dr. Elaine Porter. A neatly dressed woman with tight features and clipped footsteps took the stand. She adjusted her glasses, appearing every inch the corporate scientist. Melissa smiled. Dr. Porter, please state your occupation. I am the Chief Technology Officer at Titan Energy Group. And did your company develop a prototype known as the Helios core? Yes, she said confidently. Our research division has been experimenting with microreactors for several years. Raymond leaned toward Adrian. Watch her. She's too rehearsed. Melissa folded her hands behind her back. And did Mr. Cross have any access to this research? No. And yet his device matches Titan Energy's design exactly, doesn't it? Dr. Porter nodded. Down to its internal architecture. Murmurs rippled across the gallery. Adrian looked like someone had punched him. Raymond didn't react, not visibly. Melissa smirked at the jury. No further questions. Raymond stood. Cross-examination, Your Honor. The judge nodded. Proceed. Raymond approached the stand with the calmness of someone who already knew the ground would crumble underneath his opponent. Dr. Porter, he said kindly, I'd like to begin by asking, how long have you been CTO at Titan Energy? For years, she said. And in those 4 years, how many new patents has Titan Energy filed in renewable technology? She blinked. Excuse me? Let me rephrase. 0 patents in renewable energy, correct. She shifted. We have ongoing development. 0 patents, Raymond repeated. Why yes, she admitted reluctantly. Interesting, he whispered, tapping his chin. So a company with no renewable breakthroughs in 4 years suddenly invented the most advanced microreactor in modern history? That's correct, she said firmly. And yet, Raymond said, stepping closer, your research budget reports show no expenditure for geothermal modeling. None. Not a single line. The courtroom erupted. Melissa shot up. Objection. The defense is referring to documents not in evidence. Raymond lifted a folder. Actually, Your Honor, they've been in evidence since this morning. Prosecution Exhibit 12. The judge flipped through her notes. He's correct. Melissa's face dropped. Raymond turned back to the witness. Dr. Porter, if Titan Energy developed the Helios core, why didn't the company spend a single dollar modeling the geological stress requirements for its reactor casing? She froze. Silence. Raymond leaned in. Tell the truth. Her jaw tightened. I don't know, she said. Raymond raised an eyebrow. You're the CTO. How do you not know where your research money goes? She opened her mouth, closed it. The jury whispered among themselves. Raymond delivered the kill shot. Dr. Porter, do you personally believe Titan Energy created the Helios core? Her eyes darted nervously. Yes, she whispered. Raymond stepped back. You're lying. Gasps filled the room. Melissa slammed her folder. Your Honor, this is out of line. Raymond faced the judge. Your Honor, may I treat the witness as hostile? The courtroom tensed. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Granted. Raymond faced Dr. Porter again. You're lying because you were told to lie. You're lying because Victor Langston signs your checks. And you're lying because you're afraid of what happens if you tell the truth. Her hands trembled. Isn't that right? He said softly. I can't, she stuttered. Can't what? Raymond pressed gently. Can't risk your job? Your reputation? Or your safety? Tears welled in her eyes. Melissa stood. This is coercion. No, Raymond replied, voice low but sharp. This is the first honest moment this witness has had all day. Dr. Porter broke. I tried to stop it, she whispered. I told Langston the design wasn't ours. I told him it belonged to Cross. And he said, she covered her face. He said we'd burn the prototype and frame him before we let him release it. The courtroom exploded. Reporters scribbled furiously. Bailiffs rushed forward. Melissa's face went pale. Adrian looked like he might collapse. The judge slammed her gavel over and over. Order! Order! Dr. Porter sobbed on the stand. Raymond remained still. Steady. Controlled. The storm he had waited years to unleash had finally begun. The judge glared at Melissa. Do you wish to redirect? Melissa swallowed. No. Your Honor. The judge nodded slowly. The witness may step down. Dr. Porter left the stand trembling, avoiding the prosecution table completely. Raymond sat beside Adrian. "You still good?" he whispered. Adrian nodded, breathless. I can't believe she said it. I thought no one would ever speak." Raymond smiled faintly. "Everyone speaks eventually, especially when they've been carrying someone else's lies." Adrian stared at him. "Raymond, what made you so sure she'd break?" Raymond's eyes darkened with a pain that came from long ago. "Because I know what it feels like to be crushed by someone like Langston." He looked forward again. "And I know what it feels like when someone finally cracks the chains." The judge's gavel echoed like a thunderclap through the courtroom. "We will take a brief recess," she announced. But nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Raymond remained seated, hands folded, eyes locked forward as if he were staring at ghosts only he could see. Adrian whispered, Do we just wait now?" Raymond nodded. "The storm has only begun." When the judge returned, her expression had hardened into something new. Something dangerous. "Bring in the next witness," she ordered. But Melissa didn't stand. She didn't speak. She wasn't even looking at her notes. She stared at Raymond, like she had finally realized who she was truly up against. "Your Honor," she croaked, voice hollow, "the prosecution withdraws witnesses 2 through 7. The gallery erupted. "You're giving up your case?" the judge asked, stunned. Melissa's lips trembled. "We were misled. Evidence provided to us was compromised. We request a postponement to restructure our." Raymond rose to his feet. "Objection. The defense moves for immediate dismissal with prejudice." Guess. Chaos. Half the jury looked at the other half like someone had detonated a bomb beneath the courtroom. The judge lifted a hand. "Approach." Raymond approached calmly. Melissa approached shakily. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Graves, are you telling me your entire case is based on fabricated evidence?" Melissa swallowed. "Your Honor, I don't know what is real anymore." Raymond's voice was low but razor-sharp. "Because your lead witness just confessed it was all orchestrated." Melissa squeezed her eyes shut, fighting tears. Not for Adrian, but because she knew her career had just died on live broadcast. "Your Honor," she said weakly, "we request." Raymond cut in. "They don't get to rebuild a lie." The judge's jaw set. She straightened in her seat. "Motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted." The room imploded. Cheers. Shouts. Reporters ran from the courtroom like a wave of panicked birds desperate to break the story first. But Adrian didn't hear any of it. He was frozen, hands shaking, breath gone. Raymond turned toward him. "It's over." Adrian stared, tears instantly running down his face. I thought I was finished." Raymond shook his head softly. "Not with me in your corner." The judge slammed the gavel one last time. "Mr. Cross, you are free to go." Then she did something no one expected. She looked straight at Raymond. And nodded. Not as a judge acknowledging an attorney, but as a human acknowledging a man who had just dragged truth into daylight with his bare hands. Bailiffs began clearing the room. Raymond gathered his files into his old, scuffed briefcase. It looked out of place next to all the leather and polished metal around him. Adrian paused. "Raymond, why did you do it? You barely knew me." Raymond's face softened with an ache that had lived in him for decades. "I didn't do it for you," he said. "I did it because 30 years ago, no one did it for me." Adrian blinked. He wanted to speak, but words failed him. Raymond closed the briefcase, clicked the latch, and whispered, almost to himself. "And I swore, if I ever got the chance to stand up again, really stand up, I would do it for someone who needed it." Adrian pulled him into a sudden, fierce embrace. "Thank you," he whispered. "I owe you my life." Raymond patted his back. "Just live it well." As they stepped out of the courtroom, cameras flashed like lightning. Journalists shoved microphones in their faces. "Mr. Cross, is it true Titan Energy planted evidence? Mr. Hale, how did you break the witness? Is this the biggest courtroom conspiracy in Chicago's history? Raymond, what's next for you?" Raymond kept walking. Not out of arrogance, out of clarity. He had no desire to become a celebrity. He had walked into that courtroom covered in janitor dust, and he walked out the same man. But Adrian grabbed his arm. Raymond, I'm serious, I want to help you. Sponsor you. Fund your return to law. Open a firm. Raymond chuckled. You think money can fix everything? No, Adrian replied quietly. But sometimes it can build something good. Something worthy. Raymond's smile faded into something gentler. I'll think about it. Later that night, Raymond walked into his modest apartment. His old suit hung heavy with sweat. His shoes were scuffed from pacing. His hands shook not from fear, but from release. His daughter, Nia, stood inside waiting. She had watched the trial from the office where she worked. The second she saw him, she burst into tears. Dad, she cried, running to him. I knew you still had it in you. I knew it. Raymond hugged her tightly. I didn't win alone. You helped. Your tech skills saved the case. She smiled proudly, wiping tears. I just gave you the tools. You did the rest. They stood there for a long moment. A father and daughter who had once been broken by a wicked system, now healed by the truth. The next morning, the world had changed. Raymond's name was everywhere. Social media exploded. Hashtag Justice for Cross. Hashtag Raymond Hale. Hashtag the janitor lawyer. People called him a hero. Talk shows wanted him as a guest. Even the mayor's office called. But Raymond ignored all of it. He walked into the courthouse, changed into his gray janitor uniform, and picked up his broom. The same broom he held the day he first stood up in court. A young security guard rushed up to him. Mr. Hale, what are you doing? You're famous. Raymond shrugged. Fame is noisy. Floors are quieter. But you just saved a billionaire. Raymond smiled. Justice doesn't stop just because someone clapped. He started sweeping, and somehow, it felt right. Later that afternoon, Adrian walked in wearing a fresh suit, dark green now, the color of renewal. He approached Raymond gently. You really came back, Adrian said, stunned. Raymond smirked. These floors don't clean themselves. I want you full-time at the firm I'm building, Adrian said. I'm serious. You're not meant to push brooms anymore. Raymond leaned on the handle. I'll join your foundation, he said. I'll fight cases again. I'll take clients nobody else sees. I'll teach the next kid who thinks he's too small to matter. Adrian's shoulders relaxed. Then why still work here? Raymond looked down the long corridor, sunlight hitting the marble. Because this place reminds me who I am, he said, and who I fight for. A long silence. Understanding settled between them. Adrian nodded. Lead the way, Raymond. Wherever you go, I'll support it. Raymond picked up his broom again. Good, he whispered, because the next battle starts soon. He glanced at the courtroom doors, not with fear, but with purpose. He had stepped into that place as a janitor. He walked out as a defender of justice. And now, he stood ready to fight for those who had no voice at all. Raymond Hale was no longer invisible. He was exactly where destiny meant him to be. And if you're still watching this, remember one thing. Heroes don't always wear power suits. Sometimes they carry brooms. Stories like this deserve to be heard, so more people understand that justice can rise from anywhere. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in fighting for what's right, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your engagement helps this message reach someone who might need hope today. Because sometimes, one story can change everything.